Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Hager number RC1842. This is a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch hinge. This hinge features a 5/8 radius corner. Here's what it looks like. This is in the US 3 or 632 finish, polished brass. They call it US 3. We could call it 632 because it's made of steel with a brass plating and a lacquer applied. The BHMA code 632 is certainly a more complete definition of what this hinge is. But Hager, being a company that existed several decades? Yeah, not a century, but several decades before the BHMA code, or even the U.S. codes. They existed well before the U.S. codes. They got the adoption of the U.S. codes in the early 1930s, is best I can tell, and they decided we're sticking with it. We're not going to change the BHMA. So anyway, US 3 is what this is, polished brass. Now the RC1842, that part number in no particular order means a number of things. We demonstrated that it means that it's made of solid brass, which of course it is indeed. RC1842. Okay. That it is a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves here that when the leaves are brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. Means that it is a 5-knuckle hinge. You can see why it's a 5-knuckle hinge. Means that it is plain bearing as well. There are no bearing packets here. If you ordered the RCBB1842, it would be this same hinge, except it would have a couple of bearing packets up here and down here. Means it's a 5/8 radius hinge. There are 3 typical corner treatments on hinges, and those would be square corner, 1/4 inch radius, or 5/8 radius. And the radius corners, how those are achieved is when you are routing the door and frame with a router. The diameter of the bit defines that. So a 1/4 inch radius is going to be achieved when you have a 1/2 inch router bit. A 5/8 radius will be achieved when you have an 1 1/4 router bit. Why would you use one over the other? Well, if you're the pre-hanger, the mill shop, the door manufacturer, you might want to use 1 1/4 because your tool path is substantially reduced with a 1 1/4 diameter bit. Of course, the purpose for reducing the tool path is to speed up the process. That router, that's it. That's all you need to route that completely. With an 1 1/4 bit, that 1/2 inch bit, you're going to have to get in there, and you're going to have to probably, for sure, double the amount of tool path that you're dealing with. So that's why you're going to see 1 1/4. I think it's unusual for someone to do 1 1/4 in the field, because an 1 1/4 diameter router bit, while they certainly exist, they're for particular applications. So if you're looking for 5/8 radius, that's how the door manufacturer prepped your material for. What else is particular about an RC1842? They are reversible. I mean, there's a button tip on your pin. You could drive that hinge pin out if you saw it necessary, but it will work for left-hand doors. It'll work for right-hand doors. I don't see any reason to swap that or to turn it over at all. Okay, I would want that at the bottom. So yeah, and they're packed at 2 per box, but the price is per hinge. You can buy 3. We will send you an odd number. We'll just break the package open. Screws are going to be included. Those will also be made of steel and a complementary polished brass finish as well. Probably number 9 by 3/4 would be my guess. And these are what they call fly cut. Fly cut. That treatment that you see right at the tip of my finger, that evacuates the wood as you're going in to cut those threads into your wood material. permitting the pre-hanger to not pre-drill the material, these fly cut screws. I would absolutely recommend pre-drilling every hole every single time. Now, let's talk about the different finishes that we can get our hands on, and then we'll switch to the supporting documentation on the screen here, and we'll talk about the finishes at the same time. Okay, so this is the item that we're looking at here on screen. And, you know, our extended description information here and down below. We've covered all this, so we won't go over it again. And let's look at the supporting documentation that we have. A product catalog is really handy because we can look at our RC1842. It's on page 4. And what's nice is you can look at it with its ball bearing counterpart. Steel with steel pin, reversible, round corners, etc. Okay. RC1841 is the same as an RC1842, except that it's going to be a giant box with a bunch of hinges tossed in it. So if you're a pre-hanger, you're going to want bulk assembled, unless of course you want them unassembled, which might be very advantageous where the hinge leaves are already separated. If you're building pre-hungs, I'm sure that you likely want them that way. Removable pin, yes, we talked about that, and then 2 per box. So the rest of this document is handy because Hager, their namesake is Hager Hinge, and they have lots of variations of residential hinges. And one thing I'd like to point out is that image of our RC1842. The hinge that we're doing is a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch. This is clearly showing a 4 by 4, or it's at least showing a 4 inch because it has this staggered, or what some people call a zigzag pattern. Okay, a zigzag pattern. There are a lot of different templates, a lot of different patterns of holes for hinges. So if you are swapping hinges out, you're going to want to dig deeper to make sure that the location of the holes in the hinge leaf that you're getting is going to be compatible with what you're working on. Okay. So be mindful of that. Be mindful also of different zigzag patterns from different manufacturers because they will not be the same. Hager does have some hinges that are unique to Hager that you will find out in the world. And while other manufacturers do have very, very similar locations, they're not the same. They're not identical. You know, you've got different variations, square corner by radius corner if you're dealing with a wood frame and a metal-clad door. You know, you would see that sort of stuff. These are safety stud features that you see here. Security stub, they call it. That's a perforation in the metal so that when the door closes, that projecting perforation will stick into that hole, rendering it basically all but impossible to remove that door from the frame when the door is in the closed position. So this document is very handy for your review. Then there's the template that's here, and that's going to show you the dimensional location of the holes for the screws on their 3.5 inch hinges. They're 3.5 by 3.5 inch hinges. Okay, and they're all listed there for your review. You'll want to double check that if you're not sure. And don't take for granted that they will match. 3.5 is pretty easy because I'm not really familiar with a modern hinge that will be in a different location, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. This template is also appropriate for these other model numbers of hinges from Hager as well. We're dealing with an RC1842, so that will be in our steel column. And I see it here. Steel hinges, RC1842. 5/8 radius, 0.85 is the leaf thickness. I feel like we did not discuss the extended description very well, but 0.85 is the leaf thickness. That, when someone says it's a residential weight and it is a 3.5 inch tall hinge, that's going to equate to 0.85, or with very, very, very little variation on that. Okay, so 0.85 is a residential weight. If you're changing hinges, you'll also want to make sure that it's the right leaf thickness as well. You could have a standard weight 3.5 inch hinge, and that will be 123 thousandths, and it would not be fun to get a load of hinges to find out that they're too thin or too thick. So eliminate the guesswork. and work towards determining what you're dealing with. And they do give that metal gauge 085 dimension on that template as well. Okay. Number 9 by 3/4 flathead fly cut screws. I think I showed you that earlier. Okay. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page. That is very handy because it will allow you to review not only all things Hager that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website as well as a link to the full product catalog. And let's pull that up now. And that Hager catalog is here. Their website link is here. Other encyclopedic documents are here. If you're interested to know anything, or if you're interested to know anything about the Hager keying system that they have, Hager has its own unique keyway and its own unique, relatively unique keying system. So if you are in the locksmith realm, you might want to review that document because you'll probably bump into Hager keyways eventually. And then the companion video that I created, which is here. Let's finish up this video on camera. Now, the name Hager Hinge is synonymous with all things door and hardware related, hardware-wise. They don't make the door and frame, but at least they don't yet. There are lots of Hagers that are actively involved in the company. I did have the pleasure of sitting in a advanced specification, an advanced door and hardware detailing class, and the lead instructor was Hager's head of specification writing. An absolute joy to have that gentleman as an instructor because of the utter expert command over the subject matter. Hager is a company that is ever evolving their product line. Their footprint continues to grow. I believe, based on what I've seen the last 5 or 10 years from them, that they are very much focused on playing within a much larger space of the commercial construction world against the other companies that exist there. Your global multi-billion, multinational companies that are existing. Hager gives you a complete solution other than the door and frame. And what I mean by that is they are selling the hinge, the lock, the exit device, the electrified hardware, the door closer, the trim and auxiliary, the weather stripping, the Roton continuous geared hinges, etc., etc. So as a company, I don't know the inner workings, but they appear to have a focus on growth. So good for them. They do have a loyal following. People ask for Hager and they want Hager. I've had clients call and say, I need a Hager lock. Okay, here's the price, and the lead time happens to be 2 weeks. Oh, really? Well, I've got this other lock that might work for you if the lead time doesn't work. Nope, I'll wait for the Hager. I hear that all the time. That's a testament to what they're doing. Any questions on the Hager RC1842 and a 3.5, 3.5 and a US 3 finish, or any finish? We did not go over the finishes. Let's do that really quick right here and right now. And of course, to just complete this video, suffice it to say that Hager has solutions and a very, as I said earlier, a loyal client base. If you have any questions on the Hager, this is their RC1842, 3.5, 3.5 and a US 3 finish, or any other Hager product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.